The political decisions people make will affect many lives. Many people see politics as the government and the laws being made. While that is true, it's way more complicated than that.
I don't know what type of procedure is this.
Some of you may be aspiring to positions of leadership in the political arena.
And I accepted full responsibility.
But the question is, why do you want to lead?
It has everything to do with you. Every law that is made will impact many. Sometimes the decisions do affect people negatively. Therefore, it's very important to note that every vote that you cast will either break or make people. Politics with GA brings you the latest political news as well as insight and analysts as we discuss the most important issues that matter. It was the day that security operatives practically took laws into their hands when they barricaded all entry and exit points leading to Nigeria's Legislative Assembly premises. And this assault on democracy was met with damning consequences. The acting president, Professor Anthony swung into action. He summoned the Director General of the Department of State Services, Lawal Daura, and relieved him of his appointment with immediate effect. Thanks for staying tuned to Politics with GA. Now, many have asked if the president and not the vice president who's acting for the period that President Buhari is out of town will take a decision of this magnitude. Many are in doubt, but who knows? This unauthorized act by the DSS was embarrassing enough to spur the acting president to action, and as usual, Nigerians reacted across social media and conventional media. Now let's backtrack and start the narrative from where it all began. The leadership of the Senate had called an emergency meeting, obviously to horse trade and drum up support for the embattled leadership who had demonstrated that they have 9 lives. The duo of Senators Bukola Saraki and Ike Ekweremadu are not strangers to internal rebellion and the twists and turns which saw defection of many from the APC to the opposition PDP. Many had predicted that Dr. Saraki was always a de facto member of the PDP when he assumed office in a palace school staged by him and a few loyal supporters at the beginning of the 8th Assembly. And he has lived by the skin of his teeth through the Code of Conduct Tribunal trial, which he fought and emerged victor all the way to the Supreme Court, and the offer bank robbery, which seems to be yet another battle he must win. He has continued to stay ahead of conspiracies, the intrigues, and the growing involvement of law enforcement to subdue and intimidate dissenting voices. And it all came to a head yesterday. Now let's watch the events, starting with the daring confrontation which earned this lawmaker the heroine of democracy.
I tell you to shoot this bullet, and Nigeria shall face you. I dare you to shoot this bullet. You cannot come and go back to your station. Go back to your station. You cannot come here and embarrass us and also oppress us here.
The same people we are fighting for.
Was it the same thing Jonathan did to Buhari? If Goodluck had done this, would Buhari have become a president? You cannot do this to us.
Wow, that was close. Now, this is my question. If a Nigerian was this daring and didn't have the prying eyes of the world press and cameras and citizen journalists, what would have been the end result? That's a question that I may not have a ready answer for. But my advice is never confront armed masked men. You never know how it may unfold. Events unfolded in rapid succession, and another lawmaker had this to say.
With some pushing and shoving, they allowed us into the building. The council chamber is shut, no air conditioning, no staff. So we can't do any work. So senators and House of Rep members are at the foyer waiting. We are waiting for the invasion that has not taken place.
And this probably drew the reaction of the British High Commission in Abuja. With this statement from a spokesman, the statement reaffirmed the British High Commission's commitment and support for the right to vote in all democratic processes, and warned that this must be the norm as an election season approaches. And for the leadership of the Senate, it was a rousing welcome as they finally made their way into the Senate chamber. Supporters cheering them on, and he didn't end there.
Take this picture. Very important picture. Take it.
But wait a minute. They survived to fight yet another day. But who knows what will happen? Will they run out of aces, or will the antagonists unleash a trump card? When we come back, we'll give you an analysis of this latest assault on Nigeria's democracy and what it portends for Nigeria. That matter. I spoke with Professor Anthony Kila about this worrying developments, and I began by asking him to share his views about the politics of Nigeria and the state of our democracy. There's a lot of flurry of activities when it comes to the Nigerian political scene. What's your assessment of the landscape as we inch towards the 2019 general elections?
Wow, I think at the moment it's, to say chaotic is to put it mildly. Because the power blocks, the political power blocks, have decided to face each other squarely, and that is creating some kind of realignment and fluidity amongst the political class. That said, though, I think in all these, the citizens should take a different stance. The citizens should take a step back and become rational and selfish and exploit the ongoing chaos, confrontation, challenges, and competition among the political class.
But it seems they have little options left. It's either A or B. What options do they have? How can they exploit this division amongst the heavyweights?
Well, two ways. The first way is to is within these A and B that you say. Maybe that's the two options. You know, the general political class in various political parties. The first option is to keep asking more questions and perhaps force this very bad political class to pretend to be good. Because if, with the help of people like you in the media, if the people, citizens, you know, normal people can try to find a voice and not contend for power, but to ask for accountability and clear programs, the ruling class will be forced to dance to their tune. And by that pretense, people can then build on it and then hold them accountable. The other option is to ignore A and B and look for a third force. You know, to actually stop looking at people who are more likely to win. There's a very sad slave-like mentality in Nigeria where people vote for people because they think they can win. I really wish to be quoted as people, to let people know that you should support people and ideas, not because they can win, but because they should win. And that is another option that we can follow.
Mr. President said God is fishing out the bad eggs in the APC. What do you make of all of this cross-carpeting and defection in the Nigerian political scene?
What I think is it's quite an inevitable thing to happen. You know, this is a chronicle of a death pre-announced, because any slightly ready observant or just anybody paying attention will have seen this coming. The APC went to power as a coalition of forces, and they did not manage it well. It was bound to happen. You see, when you go into government, now, we must say very quickly that 4 years ago, the same thing happened when the PDP were losing ranks to the benefit of the APC. Today is the APC losing rank to the benefit of the PDP. So it's like one kind of osmosis. But there's a slight difference. You see, those guys in PDP have been together for long. That was a monolithic bloc. This one that is not lasting long is because it's a coalition that was badly managed. When you take a coalition to government, you're supposed to have one of two things. One is that a very strong party, headed by a strong party chairman and council, that pulls together the blocks that makes a coalition, that liaises with government, holds government to accountability, and makes government popular. If you don't have that, you have a strong government with a strong head of government, in this case the president, who will be very political, very partisan, very participative in the political process, and would bridge that gap, that interest of various blocks of the coalition with that of the whole country by good governance and being communicative. The APC administration gave us none of both. They gave us a weak party headed by a good but uninfluential, non-charismatic man in the position of Chief Oyegun. Amazingly, the man tried to cling on to power even when it was obvious that his days were numbered. On the other side, the president was politically aloof. On partisan thing, he was absent. So you mix those things together, you know, disembarkment is a given, and that's where we are today from their point of view.
Something interesting happened over the weekend. The Federal Aviation Authority of Nigeria condemned in absolute terms the invasion of the airport by fans, if I can use that word, by loyalists of Senator Wamako during his homecoming. And we've seen this type of scenes play out across the country, where you see masses of people welcome politicians. Every other 4 years, they become the beautiful bride, even though they've not provided quality education, healthcare, and what have you. What is really going on? And why do people still come out en masse in spite of all what they've been through?
These are very poor, unutilized, unemployed people. You say they go to praise politicians. They get a job once in a while to be props and to act as part of a scene. Those are rented crowds. Those are people who are neglected for 4 years or for however how long, and once in a while get a role to play. It's a very sad scenario. You know, it says more about our political class and more about our human conditions in the country. So it's a very, very sad thing to say.
Are you worried about the lack of vision and political ideology when it comes to the way we play politics in Nigeria?
Well, okay, in the specific case of Ekiti, it wasn't a competition between Fania and Olushola Eleka, as they call him. It was a battle between Fayemi and Fayose. So what you're going to expect from those battles is what you get. So, you know, we should stop this shock of the obvious in Nigeria, where we plant tomatoes and we accept to reap plantain. You know, it doesn't work that way. When you put Fayose as the lead and against Fayemi, that's what you get. But overall, are we worried about lack of ideology, ideas, and principle in politics? Yes, but you know what? Things are so bad that I don't even hope for that anymore. I just want a battle on policies, so that, and I say this as a gradual gain, because that is possible to do if we actually, as a people, with the social organizations, with the media, NGOs, and all those that wish this country well, who are not fighting for power. If we can force them, each time we talk to them, to just ask very simple questions. Are you for restructuring, yes or no? What kind of restructuring are you for? Are you for defending the dollar, yes or no? What kind of fiscal policies do you have in place? Are you going to raise the tax, yes or no? What kind of raising? If we just force them for very concrete things, it might just be a better place. Because if you tell them to go and do ideology and ideas, it's going to take a long time. So, I'm very easy to please. If we can just do those very cogent things, we might make some headway.
Do you think the media has a part to play in this? And is the media part, how important is the media in democracy?
I think the media is very important. I think the importance of the media has been underrated by some people. You see, when I say underrated, it means that we've allowed the media to go AWOL, to be absent and be badly managed. And we've not really seen their importance very well. The media needs to get a consciousness of itself. The media in Nigeria is brilliant, contrary to what people say. The problem is just that it has not really been seen as the right position it should be. You see, elsewhere in the world, people retire from politics to media. They aspire to be media practitioners. It doesn't seem to be the case in Nigeria because we don't understand it. And again, it's because, in a way, people who are not capable have taken the reins of power. So there is a set of anti-intellectualism, anti-rationality that doesn't help things. In that kind of situation, the media cannot thrive. It's a sad thing. People don't know. People are rushing to do pidgin English media because that's the way to reach the masses. But the problem is, in the whole world, the movement has been to emancipate the masses, not to go and meet them where they are. You see, we've left the idea of good diction, good writing, to repeating whatever, and you find a broadcaster saying, I don't know what else to ask you. And we're used to that. And because of that, that has eroded the power of the media. But because the media is a continuous thing, they can always pick its position. The media is very important because if the media decides to set its own agenda rather than follow the agenda of money bags or follow the agenda of existing parties, the change will be marvelous and amazing and very quick.
This morning, we witnessed a lot of drama in the National Assembly where elected senators were prevented from going about their constitutional duties. Are you worried about the use of institutions of government to fight their political games amongst politicians?
It's very worrisome. It's also very sad. For you to see police officers or any force being involved in the National Assembly, first it tells you that the people we call distinguished and honorable are also distinguished and also honorable. That's the first thing it tells you. It also tells you that we're very far from a stable system. We're very far from a league of gentlemen and ladies that have conversation, that are bold and articulate to push their ideas forward. In that sense, it makes you realize that maybe what we really need to do is to find an alternative to politics. We need to understand that these politics, the people there, are simply overpaid, overestimated, and they're not part of the solution. So we need to find a solution in civil society.
Brookings Institution has ranked Nigeria as the poverty capital of the world, basically. And in the last elections in Ekiti State, we witnessed a lot of vote buying. The observers there said there was a lot of vote buying. How do we make money irrelevant when it comes to politics in Nigeria? And should vote buying be criminalized? Genuinely
hungry. To go past vote buying, we need to address it from 3 or 4 areas. We need to address it from a legal point of view, enforcement, sociological, pedagogical point of view, educating people on one side, and we also look at the economical side of it. So let's start from the enforcement thing. INEC should not toy with the idea of criminalizing vote buying. That is one of the first duties of INEC. They should be very serious on it. The police should be serious on it. The media should be serious on it, on really looking at that. It's a big crime to buy votes.
So even if all sides are doing it, it's still bad?
It's still bad. It's not a matter of who's doing it. It's whoever does it, thou shalt not buy votes. Should be a very big rule. So that's the legal side instead of enforcement. And if anybody's caught doing that, buying or selling votes, they should be very severely punished. It should be seen as a very serious thing. It should be treated as like a coup d'etat. It should be seen something like a treason against the state to buy yourself votes. On one side, how many people would they arrest? Somebody said to me once an objection when I was delivering the paper. I said, let us build more prisons for vote buyers and sellers and create jobs by building prison and by jailing people. So that's on one side, and fine them as well. And public officers or politicians who do it should be banned from being able to participate. It should be a very serious thing. On the other side of sociology and pedagogy, people should be informed about the consequence of selling their votes. There should be, what's that body called? The orientation board, or what's it called? National orientation. It should be scrapped or all of them sacked. They're very useless at the moment. They should really get in there and move around and use the media and social media to explain the importance of not selling your vote. You do all that, but you also need to address poverty. You see, if you do all these things and people are poor, you really can't convince them because they're not going to listen to you if somebody's giving them money. So we should really look at the standard of living. Ekiti State, which you talk about, is a good example. The biggest industry in Ekiti is politics. What we need to do, I keep saying, is to make politics less important, even possibly redundant. Create jobs for people, let people aspire to be lawyers and journalists, carpenters and plumbers and shoemakers, rather than politicians. So the politics does not have so much importance. They should start by reducing their pay. That's one of the things. They should cut. If I had my way, the president of Nigeria should not earn more than the vice chancellor of the federal universities. The senators and governors should not earn the principals of federal government colleges. And if it's too little for them, they don't have to do the job. As simple as that. As a matter of fact, they should grade them at the same level so that all their allowance, everything they earn, should be equivalent of vice chancellors and school principals. That way, people will go and do something else in politics.
Your organization, CIAPS, has a monthly governors' performance index where governors are rated according to various indices such as prompt payment of salaries, infrastructure, education, and other indices. But we've seen Ekiti State, for example, the NLC has given the governor a deadline to pay salaries before he vacates office. How do we ensure that governors pay salaries on time? And for those that pay, how do we make sure they don't see it as a luxury that, oh, look, this is an achievement, I paid salaries this month?
I think we should criminalize the ones that are not paying. We should keep pointing them out, showing that they're incompetent and probably fraudulent. Because if you cannot, salary is the one thing that for states, it's a fixed expenses. The moment you get there, you know the number of people you're going to pay. If you employ more, you know what the salary should be. So if they cannot do anything, they should at least pay salary. The state that did not pay salary was building a bridge to nowhere. Very expensive bridge to nowhere. So those are the kind of things. And I think what we need to do is, we need to keep pointing them out to say you have not paid salary. And perhaps, given that most states in Nigeria, save for some few exceptions, take their income from the federal government, which is a bad thing, but that's what we are today. Maybe the federal government should pay the salary itself so that the governors don't get it. So they should say that, send us a budget of all your staff, of how much you need to pay. This is the money, and you put it into a salary paying account straight away. And that one, you bypass them, and that problem is solved.
Professor Anthony Kila sharing his thoughts about Nigeria and the state of the nation. And the President of the Senate kept his word and addressed the media. Senator Bukola Saraki addressed the press conference on Wednesday, one day after officials of the Department of State Services laid siege on the National Assembly complex. He condemned the action of the security operatives and described it as an assault on the nation's parliament. He says it beats our imagination how this is being allowed to occur. It beats also our imagination of how the head of a security agency could have authorized the brazen assault on the legislature we saw yesterday. Senator Saraki, however, reiterated an earlier warning. He said there was a government within a government allegedly working against the will of the people.
The forcible shutdown of the legislature was an unconscionable assault on a national institution. And thanks to all your efforts, the aggressors have been put to shame. The resistance mounted by the staff, our staff of the National Assembly, my colleagues in both chambers, and the civil society, who refused to leave the entrance of this complex until siege was broken, strengthens my faith and that of the Honorable Speaker in the people of this country.
And away from Nigeria, these are some news from around the world. Now, let's take a look at news from Africa and around the world. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, President Joseph Kabila scheduled talks on Tuesday with allies to discuss handpicking a candidate to run in the upcoming elections on the eve of a key campaign deadline. Members of a pro-Kabila alliance known as the Common Front were called to an important meeting last evening at the presidential residence on the outskirts of Kinshasa. President Kabila's spokesman, Lambert Mende, said the chosen candidate will be known early in the morning after the talks. Candidates have until late Wednesday to file their bid for the December 23rd poll, a ballot seen as crucial for the future of the notoriously unstable country. Kabila has been in power since 2001 and should have stepped down at the end of 2016 when its constitutional two-term limit expired. He has invoked a constitutional clause enabling him to stay on as caretaker, but he left everyone guessing whether he will seek to run again, perhaps by arguing that this is permissible because of a revision of the constitution in 2006. The uncertainty has ratcheted up political tensions, leading to anti-Kabila protests that have been bloodily repressed. The Democratic Republic of Congo has never known a peaceful transition of power since it gained independence in 1960. Iranian Foreign Minister Javad Zarif has held talks in Tehran with North Korean Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho in a show of defiance as the United States reimpose economic sanctions on the Islamic Republic. The meetings on Tuesday between the two top diplomats from countries both under American sanctions coincided with the return of sanctions which US President Donald Trump has described as the most biting ever. In a social media post on Tuesday night, Zarif wrote that the world is sick and tired of US unilateralism, adding that the world won't follow impulsive tweeted diktats. Just ask EU, Russia, China, and dozens of our other trading partners, he said. Earlier on Tuesday, Trump wrote on social media that anyone doing business with Iran will not be doing business with the United States. Why one company in France won't say bye-bye to Iran? I'm asking for world peace, nothing less, Trump said in his tweet. Remember him? Yes, he's one of my favorite Hollywood action heroes. His name is Steven Seagal and has been appointed as Russia's special representative on humanitarian relations with the United States. The veteran actor's task will be to contribute to the further development of Russian-American relations in the humanitarian sphere. This will cover culture, arts, public and youth exchanges, amongst other things, the Russian Foreign Ministry said on its Facebook page. Seagal won't be receiving any payment for doing the job, which the ministry described as the case of people's diplomacy meeting with traditional diplomacy. The 66-year-old action star, who appeared in more than 60 movies, including Above the Law and On the Siege, said he was sincerely grateful to the Russian Foreign Ministry for the opportunity. He said, "I've always tried to do everything possible to help Russian-American relations to improve." Seagal, who holds both Russian and US passports, said. Seagal, who has Russian roots, has been a long-time supporter of the country, visiting it regularly as he opened a chain of Planet Hollywood franchise in Moscow in the 1990s. The martial arts expert and the owner of the 7th black belt in Aikido is often credited as Vladimir Putin's good friend in Western media. He signed his newly received Russian passport in the presence of the president in 2016. Thanks for watching. See you next time on Politics with GA. The political decisions people make will affect many lives. Many people see politics as the government and the laws being made. While that is true, it's way more complicated than that.
I don't know what type of procedure is this.
Some of you may be aspiring to positions of leadership in the political arena.
And I accepted full responsibility.
But the question is, why do you want to lead?
It has everything to do with you. Every law that is made will impact many. Sometimes the decisions do affect people negatively. Therefore, it's very important to note that every vote that you cast will either break or make people. Politics with GA brings you the latest political news as well as insight and analysis as we discuss the most important issues that matter.